was a bitter dawn in the high desert of New Mexico Territory, 1874. The wind clawed through the canyon like a starving coyote, howling at the stone walls that remembered blood. Clara Whitlock stirred from uneasy sleep, the kind of sleep a woman takes after burying a man she once loved beneath frozen earth, the kind that never rests deep. Her cabin stood silent beneath the towering red buttes of Red Elk Pass, miles from the nearest voice, the nearest law, or the nearest comfort. Thomas had liked it that way. No men, no eyes, just the land and me, he used to say. But now it was just the land. And her. And blood. It trailed across the porch. Fresh. Dark. Almost black in the cold light, like someone had spilled paint itself across her threshold. She didn't scream. Didn't gasp. Just stepped forward barefoot, the frost biting her toes, and reached for her husband's old Henry rifle leaning against the doorframe. It still smelled like oil. Still carried the memory of his hands. Her breath smoked the air, but her fingers stayed steady. She nudged open the cabin door with the barrel. And there, crumpled like a broken hawk on her floor, was a man. He wasn't old. Maybe 30. His body was lean and wiry, sun-darkened, half-covered in blood and dust. His chest was bare, slashed with a bullet wound that still wept slow. His arms bore bone ornaments and carved beads, the kind Clara had seen around Apache warriors' necks in wanted posters and settlers' nightmares. One hand clutched a scrap of leather. His lips were parted. He wasn't breathing. Then his eyes opened. Black. Sharp. Alive. Clara flinched. The rifle snapped higher. Her finger brushed the trigger. But she didn't pull. "You bleed on my floor," she said, voice dry as tinder. "And you expect mercy." His voice came soft, like smoke through dying embers. "I did not expect to wake." "You're Apache." He didn't deny it. "Your kind raided the valley last month. Settlers killed. One family burned." Still, he said nothing. Just looked at her, his breath shallow. Her knuckles whitened around the rifle. But she didn't fire. Because he didn't flinch. "I ain't afraid to die, widow," he said. "I've done enough to earn it." She believed him. Outside, the wind howled louder, rattling the shutters. The snow was rising. The sky was turning steel. Clara stepped in and shut the door. Not because she trusted him. Because the storm coming was worse than what lay inside. "You move sudden," she said. "I shoot." "I do not move," he murmured. "I break." She knelt beside him, biting her lip hard, and stripped away the soaked cloth tied around his side. The wound was clean, deep, and ragged. Not old. Probably a carbine shot. Her husband had been a hunter. She knew bullet holes when she saw them. She fetched water. Crushed dried herbs from a tin. She moved like a ghost, working fast and precise, hands doing what memory told them even when the heart rebelled. She cleaned him. Dressed the wound. Her breath caught when his skin burned against her fingers, fever already rising. "What's your name?" she asked, dabbing his brow. Silence stretched. Then he rasped, "Kohana." "What's it mean?" "Swift." She looked at the wound. "You don't look so swift now." His mouth twitched. Almost a smile. "Your hands lie. They are kind." Her voice cooled. "My hands lie plenty." Wind slammed the side of the cabin. Then came a sound sharper than storm. A fist on the door. Clara jerked the rifle up again. Kohana tensed, pain etching his jaw. A voice barked through the wood. "U.S. Cavalry. We're tracking a savage. Open up." Kohana's eyes met hers. Dark. Calm. He didn't plead. Didn't blink. "They won't ask," he whispered. "They'll shoot." Her chest tightened. Her breath grew sharp. The rifle felt heavier now. She looked down at the blood-soaked men on her floor. A killer. An enemy. Maybe worse. But human. Then she looked at the door. Her mind screamed every name of every woman ever hung or shunned for harboring the wrong men. She had 10 seconds to choose. Law or life. She flung open the door. A soldier stood on the step, wind cutting across his face, snow swirling around his boots. Young. His eyes were sharp, and his hands rested near his belt. "You alone here, ma'am?" "I am." "You seen a wounded Apache come this way? Big man, fast, might be bleeding bad." Clara didn't blink. "No." The soldier's eyes searched her face. A beat of silence passed between them. The wind groaned. Her heart thudded. From behind her, Deep in the cabin's shadows came a low, wet cough. The soldier narrowed his eyes. What was that? The soldier took a slow step forward, boots grinding against the hard-packed dirt of the cabin floor. His eyes darted over Clara's shoulder, toward the dark corner where the hearth's light couldn't reach. His fingers twitched near the pistol at his hip. I heard something. Clara didn't blink. My chimney spits. Drafty old place. A gust of wind rattled the shutters behind him, moaning like a widow's wail. He didn't flinch. His gaze locked on hers, searching for cracks, for guilt, for the kind of tremble truth sometimes gives away. I'll have a look inside. Clara stood firm in the doorway. Got no right. You need a warrant. I ain't broken any laws. The soldier's jaw tensed. That man you're hiding, he killed 2 of ours near Dry Skull Ridge. He's dangerous. Wounded. Her voice went cold. And your boots are filthy. Wipe 'em before I break your nose. He blinked, surprised. Then chuckled. Hell, you frontier women, you scare me more than savages. He turned, brushing snow from his coat. If you see anything at all, you ride to Fort McGraw. Fast. I will. But as he mounted his horse, he twisted in the saddle and said one last thing. Anyone caught helping him, they'll hang beside him. When the hoofbeats vanished into the White Hills, Clara closed the door and leaned her back against it. Her chest rose and fell with every breath like she was pulling air through mud. Her hands trembled. You could have stayed silent, she hissed. Kohana lay still, eyes half-lidded, the fever burning deeper now. I did not mean to speak. The pain moved through me. You should be dead, she said bitterly. He turned his head, sweat purling along his brow. You made me not dead. And now I'm a liar. She moved to the basin, poured clean water, soaked a rag, and returned to kneel beside him. The heat from his skin scared her more than the bullet had. The room smelled of crushed sage, scorched wood, and something older, like sorrow given breath. Why'd they shoot you? His voice was quiet, almost a confession. Because I walked away. From what? He looked at her. His eyes weren't just dark, they were deep, carved by years of silence. From killing. The fire cracked. Sparks floated upward like lost souls. Clara sat back on her heels, watching him. You did kill, though, didn't you? He closed his eyes. Too much. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of names never spoken, places never buried, wounds never healed. The snow eased by morning, turning the land to mud. Clara fed the chickens, chopped firewood, reset a rabbit snare beneath the cedar tree. She didn't speak to him that day, but she glanced at the window more than once. Inside, the Apache lay still, lips murmuring in fevered dreams, whispering a language she didn't know. That night, his voice cut through the dark. Ishta! Ishta! She sat up from her cot, startled. She moved to him, lifted his head gently, brought a cup to his lips. He looked at her like she wasn't really there. Not her. Who? His hand shot out, gripping her wrist. His strength was sudden, real, frightening. You should have let them hang me. She pulled away, heart racing. I ain't the hanging kind. Later, when he finally slept, she found the buckskin pouch tucked beneath his blanket. Curiosity edged past caution. She opened it. Inside were small, hand-carved bone figures. A woman. A child. Their forms worn by time. And beneath them, a scrap of embroidered cloth. Bloodstained. Torn at the edges. Clara turned it over in her fingers, slowly, like it might cry out. Apache needlework. Personal. Intimate. Something that had been ripped from someone's hand. This man was running from more than bullets. More than soldiers. He was running from grief. By dawn, he sat up with a grunt, his face pale but clearer than before. The fever had broken in the night. You should have turned me in, he said, voice hoarse. You already said that. I meant it. Clara sat at the edge of the table, arms folded. I buried my husband last winter. He went out hunting, and the cold found him before the wolves did. He looked at her long. I'm sorry. She didn't answer, just stared into the flames. But I'll tell you what hurt more, she whispered. It wasn't losing him. It was the silence after. The weeks and weeks with no voice, no footsteps, no breath but my own. I thought I'd lost my mind. Maybe that's why you saved me, he said. No, she replied. I saved you because I ain't like them. The wind shifted that morning. Not the kind that brings weather, but the kind that carries trouble. 5 riders crested the ridge before noon. No blue coats this time. No flags. Just rifles, grit, and suspicion. Clara was skinning a rabbit when the first horse stopped 10 paces from her. The men who dismounted had a scar running down his cheek like a lightning strike. His uniform was frayed, his badge crooked. He didn't smile. You got company, widow. Clara stood slowly, her hands bloody, the rabbit half-finished in the snow. Just ghosts. The men stepped closer, eyes narrowing. We found tracks. Big ones. Deep. They stopped near your cabin. Her stomach turned to stone. Her grip tightened on the rabbit's leg. You calling me a liar? I'm calling you a puzzle. He looked at his men. Search the barn. Clara dropped the rabbit. Her hands moved for the rifle leaning against the cabin wall. I said no. The sergeant stepped into her space. Close. Too close. You're hiding something. She didn't flinch. And if I am? His smile was a crack of ice. Then you're about to lose more than a husband. The barn door creaked. 2 soldiers stepped inside. Clara stood frozen. The Henry rifle pressed to her shoulder. Her breath shallow. The inside of the barn was still. Then came a shout. Sergeant, you better see this. The leader turned, boots crunching toward the voice. Clara's knees went weak. And then, the sound of hoofbeats. Fierce. Wild. Behind the barn. A blur of motion burst into view. Kohana astride her husband's old stallion, shirtless, blood still drying on his chest, reins twisted in one hand. Gunfire cracked. Soldiers shouted. Too late. The Apache rode like fire through snow and dust, the wind screaming at his heels. Clara stood in the smoke, her rifle lowered. And somewhere in the hollow of her chest, where Laud and grief had once sat, a question bloomed. She wasn't sure anymore who the outlaw truly was. Kohana's horse vanished into the high white hills like a spirit escaping its body. The air still trembled with the echo of hooves and gunfire. The soldiers gave chase, their curses loud, boots thundering as they disappeared over the ridge. Clara didn't watch them go. She just stood there, heart pounding in her ears, smoke curling behind her like memory. Her hands shook. Her lungs burned. But her eyes remained dry. Something inside her shifted then. Slow, quiet, and final. Night came quickly, carried on a wind that smelled of snow and wood smoke and change. She sat with her rifle across her knees, waiting, not knowing if the next sound would be boots or silence. She told herself she didn't care anymore. But when she finally heard the low crunch of footsteps, dragging, limping, she didn't hesitate. She bolted from the cabin with a lantern in one hand and her breath caught in her throat. She found him near the creek, slumped behind a rock, bloodied and broken, one arm hanging limp at his side. I circled back, he whispered, lips cracked, voice brittle. Didn't want to die in snow. You damn fool, she muttered, falling to her knees beside him. She dragged him inside, half cursing, half crying. Snow melted beneath his body, blood seeping into her floorboards once more. She pressed a cloth to his ribs and shouted at him for being reckless, for returning, for risking everything. You could have been halfway to the border, she snapped. Why come back? His eyelids fluttered. This land, this place, you. Her breath caught. She shook her head, furious and undone. You don't know me. His lips trembled. I know you carry ghosts like arrows in your back. She sat in the dark for a long time after that, watching the fire die down. She lit sage, just as her mother had when Clara was a girl, before her mother married an old rancher to escape poverty, before Clara learned that survival and peace were not the same thing. The smoke coiled around the ceiling, thick and solemn. From the cot, Kohana stirred. You once had a child. She froze. She hadn't told him. She hadn't told anyone since the night her belly turned cold and the cradle stayed empty. How did you know? I dreamed her hands, he whispered. Tiny. Kale. Holding nothing. Clara stood too quickly. Her knees at the table, the lamp shook. She backed away, shaking her head. You stay out of my head. She didn't sleep that night. By morning, she had the rifle across her lap again. She was gutting a squirrel on the porch when she heard hooves, not cavalry. Heavier. Slower. Meaner. 6 of them rode into her clearing. Dusty coats. Dirty faces. Guns at their hips and nothing but fire in their eyes. The Mun in front dismounted first. His duster flapped in the wind, and his face bore the kind of grin that made Snake seem polite. Boone daggered. He tipped his hat like he owned the place. "Well now," he said, voice slow as syrup. "Heard you've been hiding a savage." Clara wiped her hands on her apron. "Then you heard wrong." Boone looked toward the cabin with a sneer. "Got ears in Fort McGraw. Word is, a pretty widow's been patching up a ghost. Apache. Shot up. Still breathing. She didn't blink. You ain't the law." "No," he chuckled. "The law don't ride this far. We bring justice the old way." He stepped closer. "I want the savage. Alive or not. But I'd settle for your company tonight, if you're feeling generous." Her fingers slid along the rifle's wormwood. The door creaked behind her. Kohana stepped out, blood still dried on his chest, eyes like thunderclouds. He stood beside her, tall despite the limp, just set like stone. Boone blinked. "Well, I'll be. The ghost walks." Kohana's voice was low and final. "You touch her, and your sons will bury you." Boone's hand twitched near his revolver. "That a threat?" "It's a promise." And just like that, the wind held its breath. Guns lifted. Clara screamed. Kohana moved first. Gunfire cracked like lightning. 3 of Boone's men hit the dirt before anyone else had fired. Clara dropped to the ground as Kohana rolled, aimed, and fired again, until he took a round in the side. She screamed his name, scrambling toward him. Boone grabbed her from behind, but her hand found the knife in her boot. She jammed it into his thigh. He roared, staggering, just as Kohana lunged. They hit the ground together, blood spraying, limbs thrashing. The Henry rifle clattered on the frozen dirt. Boone reached first, but Kohana struck faster. One shot. Boone's body went still. Silence swallowed the clearing. Clara crawled to Kohana, cradling him in her arms. His breath was shallow. His chest soaked red. His eyes searched hers. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Don't go." "I broke my promise," he rasped. "What promise?" "I said I wouldn't bring death to your home." She pressed her forehead to his. "You brought something else too." That night, she lit a candle. Not for mourning. For a vow. She stitched him up in silence, her hands firm but gentle. When he woke, she was beside him, holding his hand. "If they come again, if the army comes," she said, voice steady. He turned to her. "They won't find an outlaw here," she said. He frowned. "What will they find?" "A husband." The sun rose slow the next morning. Clara rode to Fort McGraw in her cleanest dress, hair tied back, boots polished. She walked into the command post without flinching, laid the paper on the desk before the young lieutenant. It was signed by the preacher in Dry Hollow. The marriage certificate read, "Clara Whitlock and Kohana, bound in matrimony." The lieutenant stared up at her like she'd grown horns. "You married an Apache?" Clara's voice cut like a blade through the room. "No," she said. "I married a man." Fort McGraw stood silent as winter breath, the flame in the potbelly stove barely flickering. Lieutenant Carrick gripped the paper like it was poison. His knuckles whitened around the marriage certificate. "You're telling me," he said, voice tight, "you married the Apache raider we've been hunting for weeks?" Clara met his stare without blinking. "I told you. I married a man." The paper slapped the table as he threw it down. "He's wanted. You think the scrap makes him clean?" Her boots scraped the wood as she leaned forward, voice hard as iron. "No. It makes him mine. And unless you plan on kicking in the door of every ranch in this territory to tear husbands from wives, I suggest you remember one thing. The law still calls a man's home and wife sacred." Carrick bristled. "Sacred? That savage killed U.S. soldiers." Clara's voice dropped to a low rasp. "And your men burned his family's winter camp. Children. Women. I saw the blood on that bracelet. You want to talk sacred?" Her gaze cut through him. "Start there." His mouth opened, then closed. His hands trembled once, then steadied. He didn't speak again. The sun dipped low by the time Clara rode back to the canyon. Her horse trudged slow, but her spine stayed straight. She carried no rifle now. Only a promise. Back at the cabin, Kohana sat upright for the first time in days. His breath had steadied. Color returned to his cheeks. Clara handed him a clean shirt, folded tight. He took it, eyes following her every movement. "You didn't have to lie," he said softly. I didn't, she replied. His brow furrowed. You said we were married. Her fingers paused at her braid. We are. Silence swelled between them, filled only by the soft crackle of fire. In your world, he asked, does that mean you belong to me? She stepped close enough to see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. No, she said. It means you belong to yourself. And I choose to walk beside that. Out in the open lands, word spread like prairie fire. Some folks whispered the widow had lost her mind. Others said she'd been bewitched. But most just watched. And waited. Something had changed in Red Elk Pass. The soldiers didn't return. But the outlaws did. A week later, Clara stood on the porch with a bowl of cornmeal in her hands when she saw it. Smoke twisting in the northern sky. She didn't call out. Didn't panic. She simply set the bowl down and went inside for the Henry rifle. Boone Daggert's younger brother, Emmett, rode in just before sundown. He brought 12 men. And a hunger for revenge. The air soured with the smell of sweat and gun oil. Emmett dismounted slow, mouth twisted in a sneer. His hat low. His eyes bright with hatred. You thought it was over, he called out. But Boone's blood don't dry easy. Clara stepped from the cabin with the rifle raised across her chest. Her boots left tracks in the dust. This land's claimed by law and God, she said. Emmett barked a laugh. You think a preacher's pen makes your savage a husband? No, she replied. But the bones buried here do. The gang stiffened. The weight of her words rippled through them. Then Kohana stepped out from the shadows. He wore no weapon, only scars and resolve. No more blood, he said, loud enough to still the wind. You want justice, take it with words, not fire. Emmett spat in the dirt. That's not how justice works. Then yours is justice born of fear, Kohana answered. There was a moment, a breathless stretch of time. 12 men, 12 guns. And then, crack. A single shot sliced through the silence. Dust kicked up near Emmett's boots. From the ridge behind him came the clatter of hooves. Lieutenant Carrick rode down with 6 cavalrymen at his back. Stand down, he shouted, pistol raised. Emmett turned, snarling. They're outlaws. You said. Carrick didn't waver. No. You are. You and your brother killed 3 homesteaders near Dry Skull. I should have shot Boone myself. The outlaws looked at each other, suddenly unsure. Clara stood tall, rifle steady. One by one, the gang lowered their weapons. And Kohana lowered his hand. That night, peace returned like a stranger too shy to knock. The cabin glowed warm beneath the stars. Clara sat on the porch, the weight of the rifle finally set aside. Kohana joined her, slower now, but strong. They said little. The sky was quiet. You were willing to die for me, he said after a long while. She turned to him, eyes shining. No, she whispered. I was willing to live for you. In the weeks that followed, the canyon breathed easier. The trees stood taller. The wind no longer howled like grief, but hummed like memory. Their names still stirred in town, spoken in low voices. But no one came knocking. In the cabin built with wood and wounds, there was music again. A woman's laughter. A man's voice humming in Apache. Widow found an Apache raider in her cabin, and was forced to call him husband. But in time, she called him something far greater. Home.